Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes. Only, this is the verbatim federal courtroom testimony of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, as reported by Inner City Press. No one expected her to show up. No subpoenas, no leaks, no public statements. But on the seventh day of testimony, Blake Lively walked into the courtroom, not as a spectator, but as a witness. The room fell silent. The media whispered in disbelief. Her career had always seemed untouched by the chaos of the industry's darker corners. But today, that illusion was shattered. Her voice trembled as she took the oath, then steadied as she stared across the courtroom at Sean Diddy Combs. Her first words echoed like a punch. To the chest, "He has taken me to the Diddy tunnels." What followed was not just testimony. It was an unraveling of power manipulation and secrets buried beneath mansions, behind velvet ropes, and under city streets. This wasn't about music. This was about survival. It began with whispers. A name was on the schedule that hadn't been leaked, subpoenaed, or speculated on by the press. When the doors opened and she stepped into the courtroom, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Blake Lively actress fashion, icon A-lister. The media froze. The gallery collectively held its breath. No one expected her to be here, not as a celebrity in attendance, but as a sealed federal witness. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the moment was unmistakable. The defense team scrambled. Diddy turned away. His expression tightened. The second he saw her take the stand for years. Blake had been one of the industry's cleanest faces. Never a headline scandal, never a PR meltdown. But now she was about to upend the very narrative that protected her. She sat down quietly. No glam squad. No handlers. Her voice was soft, even hesitant, until the oath was complete. Then she looked straight ahead and said 7 words that made the entire courtroom fall silent. "He has taken me to the Diddy tunnels." The judge leaned in. Diddy's team immediately objected, but the prosecution pushed forward. The witness was protected. The testimony already cleared. Blake continued, her eyes wide, but her voice steady. "I've only told this story once years ago, and even then I left parts out. But after what I've seen in this courtroom, I can't leave it buried anymore." The courtroom was still adjusting to the shock of her presence. When she began laying the foundation, how she and Diddy first crossed paths at a luxury fundraiser in 2014, then again at a music video shoot in Malibu. At the time, she assumed it was all industry, small talk, VIP crossover, casual celebrity circle. Nothing stuck out. Not until the 2016 after-party, following a well-known award show, he told me, "Let me show you something my guests never see." Well, I assumed he meant art or something silly. I didn't know what he meant until it was too late. That moment, casual, dismissive, seemingly harmless, would change everything. Blake Lively's voice shifted as she recounted the night in question. She described the location in detail: an exclusive post-award party at a private estate in the hills of Los Angeles. Hundreds of guests, valets in white gloves, photographers kept at the gates inside the party. Was opulent, like a designer ad come to life. But she said something felt off. "I've been to my share of Hollywood parties, but this wasn't one of them. It had all the glitz, the music, the champagne, the guest list. But something about the energy was wrong. Cold. Like everyone was performing." She explained how Diddy approached her around 1:20 am after most guests had filtered out. He smiled, gave her a drink, and told her he wanted to show her something private. She hesitated, but curiosity got the best of her. What followed was a slow walk through the back of the mansion, past velvet-draped hallways, until they arrived at a wall covered in framed vinyl records. That's when it happened. He pulled one of the frames, and the wall shifted open behind it. A narrow elevator, industrial, unfinished, no music, no polish, just a steel box, and a silence that made her stomach drop. I asked if this was part of the house. He said, "This is the real house." Then he pushed the button, and we went down. She described the descent, long, slow, too deep to be a basement. The air changed, she said. She remembers the smell, dust, ozone, something metallic. Her hands trembled on the stand as she continued. When the doors opened, it wasn't a room. It was a corridor. Concrete echoes, no windows. I turned around and the elevator door had already shut. He smiled like it was a game. The corridor had branching hallways. Some led to closed rooms, others deeper underground. Diddy led her wordlessly through what she described as a bunker. Not a basement. She noticed thick doors, soundproof walls, blinking red lights on the ceilings. Some doors had numbers. Others had names. And then I asked him where we were. He didn't answer. He just kept walking. The final room they entered had no window but mirrored walls. She said her breath caught when she looked up and saw a camera, just one, pointed directly into the room. He said, "This was Studio M. I thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. It was very real." Blake Lively's testimony deepened with every word, dragging the courtroom further into a narrative that sounded too unbelievable. And yet too detailed to be fiction. She described the tunnels as industrial, old, not recently. Built reinforced steel in places. Sand-colored paint healing off the walls. The lighting wasn't residential. It was motion-activated dim, barely enough to see ahead. But it was the silence that stayed with her. It was the quietest place I've ever been. Like the air itself didn't want to make noise, she said. Diddy walked her through what appeared to be a central hub, underground, a junction of tunnels with signs coded in numbers, and short phrases like M2 entry, red check hole, and crimson staging. When she asked what the phrases meant, he told her, "You don't need to worry about that." The mirror room, or Studio M, was the only space that had visible furniture, but it wasn't what she expected. A couch, 2 chairs facing the mirrored wall, and a table with a metal picture of water through the mirrored glass she could see into another chamber inside. A girl sat under bright white light, pale, still wearing a red wristband. I didn't understand what I was looking at. Blake said it looked like an audition room, but the girl wasn't performing. She was waiting, like she didn't know anyone could see her. She asked Diddy again, "Why are we down here?" He reportedly smiled and said, "Because this is where the real deals are made." Blake said she immediately felt unsafe. She asked to leave. He told her the elevator wouldn't return for 20 minutes. "Stay," he said, "learned something." But when she turned to look back into the glass, the girl inside was no longer sitting. She was standing. Facing the mirror directly, she couldn't see me, but she was looking like she knew. At that moment, Blake said something inside her snap. I knew I had to get out, even if I had to run blind through the tunnels. She found the elevator control panel. It wasn't locked. She slammed the button over and over until the doors opened. When she looked back, Diddy was leaning in the doorway. He said, "Just one thing. Remember, this room sees everything." She didn't sleep for 3 nights. She never told the full story until now. The room was freezing, not in temperature, but in atmosphere. Blake said she could feel it in her teeth. Not fear, not adrenaline, Something colder, like something had already happened before she even arrived. As she stood in Studio M, looking through the one-way mirror, she described a strange realization. The girl inside wasn't alone. A shadow moved just beyond the glass. Not a person, not quite a silhouette. And then someone stepped into the room dressed in gray slacks, gloves, and a headset. They didn't speak. They simply walked up to the girl, whispered something, and left. The girl nodded once, then turned to face the mirror again, directly into Blake's line of sight. She couldn't have seen me, but she was looking at me, Blake said softly in court, like she knew I was there, and she didn't look scared, she looked resigned. The mirror room, she realized, wasn't just surveillance. It was a stage not for performances, but for processing. She saw a second chair, an old CRT, monitor, and a file folder on the table. All red. The folder had no name, just a symbol. A capital C intersected by a line. The next moment broke. Her sound came from a speaker in the corner of Studio M. A static buzz, and then audio, not music, not instructions. A voice she recognized her own. It was audio of her laughing from the upstairs party. A brief, off-handed laugh, and then her voice saying, "Oh my God, you're ridiculous." A moment she remembered from earlier that night. The party had been bugged. I realized in that moment, Blake whispered in court. They were listening long before we went underground. She looked at Diddy, who hadn't moved during her testimony. Then, back at the judge. That's when I stopped feeling like a guest and started feeling like a product. After hearing her own voice played back in that room, Blake knew she had to get out fast. She reached the elevator, repeatedly slamming the call button, until the doors opened. But what chilled her more than anything wasn't what she heard or saw. It was what Diddy said. As she stepped inside to leave, he walked over, leaned against the wall, and said, "Now you know why people stay quiet." The elevator closed. That was it. But the silence didn't stop there. 2 days later, she received a package at her home. No return address inside was a single black envelope. When she opened it, a photo slipped out. A still image from a surveillance camera. It showed her standing in Studio M, one hand on her mouth, eyes wide in horror. In the corner of the image, a time code and a red stamp that read, "Witness File HLTM." There was no note, just a small slip of paper beneath the photo that read, "Stars don't talk, they shine." Blake said she panicked. She called no one, not her tea.